Welcome to another episode of Autism Spa. I'm here with Julie Neward and Marisol Rubio, advocates for Natalie's voice, disabilities rights advocates, professionals, very passionate about the cause and helping special needs adults of really any age. We wanted to learn more about what they're doing, so I'm here to introduce Julie to tell us a little bit more about herself, and then we'll turn to Marisol.
Hi, Shahriar. Thank you so much for hosting us on Autism Spa. We are so honored to be here today and help spread the message, because this movement is definitely up and coming under the disability justice flag. So anybody out there listening who's really interested in disability justice, this is for you. This is our time, and this is our moment to start banding together to make real changes for the people we love and care about. As introduced, my name is Julie Neward. I am a mother, married mother of two little girls residing in beautiful sunny San Diego. However, I'm not from here. I'm actually from the San Francisco Bay Area. I was born and raised in Walnut Creek. Mom, dad, and I'm the oldest of four children. So there's me, and then I have a sister 2 years younger named Natalie. Hence, we're going to talk about Natalie's voice. I have a brother, Philip, who lives in LA, married with 2 kids, and a younger sister, Patricia, who just got engaged 2 weeks ago and has decided to leave the family nest and move to Washington State. So our family is trying to figure things out right now. But to share with you a little bit why I'm in front of you today, my sister Natalie, she was born typical. She was born back in August of 1982, and a couple of years later, about 27 months of age, according to my mother. And side statement, my mother was an orthopedic nurse, head nurse at Northwestern, so she's medically inclined. My sister fell into a coma, is what my mother shares. I was very young, and it ultimately left my sister brain damaged with the cognitive level of a 10-month-old. Her diagnosis right now is encephalopathy unknown origin. And so, I grew up with Natalie volunteering at her summer school and seeing my parents donate computers and partitions for changing diapers. My mother would go ahead and rent a bus for her whole class, and they would go to Marine World for the day. My parents were very, very involved. And so I grew up being incredibly involved in my sister's life. My sister Natalie, being 2 years younger, she's like my best friend. And I always yearned for that typical sibling relationship. I've always yearned to tell my sister my deepest secrets. And quite frankly, I still tell her my deepest secrets, and she doesn't repeat them because of her different behaviors and the way she is. So like a 10-month-old, Natalie is nonverbal. She wears diapers. She's 24/7 care. She drinks out of a sippy cup with warm milk. We have to make sure when there's an emergency that we have a microwave ready to go. And she doesn't know how to open a door. She communicates with very loving eyes. She loves French fries. She loves chips. She loves hot baths and live music. My mom takes her a lot to Lake Tahoe for live music, and they get to sit in the front because she's in a wheelchair, and Natalie just sits there and really just taps her foot and really enjoys those moments. So why am I in front of you? On April 2nd, 2012, the year my brother and I got married, I received a phone call. So to share with you, my profession is managing real estate. I actually manage shopping malls in retail centers. Been doing that for about 17 years. So I was commuting from San Jose up to Walnut Creek, and I was probably 40 minutes into my commute, and I got a call from an urgent care. And the urgent care center said, Julie, bring your sister in. She is tested positive for gonorrhea. We have an antibiotic to get her. You need to give her. You need to come in right now. So let's just sit with that for a second. My sister's like a 10-month-old, and she has gonorrhea. Something's wrong. Something's wrong here. Background in the family, let's go there. She only lives with 2 women in the home, my mom and my sister. My parents are now divorced. So there's no men. She went to an outside caregiving program. And I have to say it like that because there's a secret settlement involved, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But she went to a daytime outside caregiving program. She came home, during the week. She would come home and be with my mom for dinner and dinner and bath time and lunch and sleep and breakfast. So she was gone 5 days a week. And quite frankly, that was my mother's only reprieve, was my sister being picked up and dropped off. You know, my sister was raped. At the end of the day, it's a very harsh reality and it's very difficult to say. And I know this is a very, very tough topic, but my sister was raped. Who the heck would rape a person with disabilities who honestly relies on people constantly for their care? This is shocking. So I called the police. They opened up an investigation. The criminal investigation is still open. I actually just had a call today, because this week I called the Concord Police Department and I asked them, can you please look into people's medical records to see if anybody had tested and been treated for gonorrhea that was with my sister at this time? And they're looking into it. There might be some hoops. I know there's HIPAA, but look, it's worth a try and I have to check the box because we have a story to tell. Civil settlement. So my mom hired a lawyer. Lawyer was great, did a good job. The facility where she went during the day very quickly settled. They settled with us. There was a monetary amount and we had to tell them that we were going to keep our mouths shut. I didn't sign the settlement, my mother did, but I choose not to talk about it openly for her. But there was a secret settlement that was signed and that was very disturbing. I had to write the checks every month to my mom. It was like blood money, right? It's like blood money. It's like this money is here because somebody was hurt. There was a crime involved. Yeah. On top of the money, you have to pay for a bond and a lot of fees. So again, the burden's on the victim. Little do people know. Yeah. What you get, you may only keep 80% of it at the end of the day. And the money goes away, guys. The money goes away. I tried advocating for systems change at the moment, but I was discouraged from it to a degree. So we got the money and my mom kept Natalie home for 4 years straight. Yeah. I saw my mother age. I saw her deteriorate. She couldn't send Natalie anywhere. We were scared to death. So I attended a self-determination meeting that the Regional Center of the East Bay was hosting. And at the end of the meeting, which I actually had no interest in the subject matter, yeah. I stood up and said, my sister needs help. My sister's been sexually assaulted. We are scared to trust. Can somebody please help us? I know the system has service coordinators set up to do these jobs, but at the end of the day, there was no help. I stood up and a gentleman stood up with Futures Explored and said, we will help you. It took us about 9 months to get going with a caregiver that we already had picked out the first day. The first moment they said yes, we already knew who we wanted to hire, but there was a lot of training involved and whatnot. So I'm proud to say that now Natalie, irregardless of COVID, yeah. Natalie now has a one-to-one that we trust, and she goes out into the community with this person. We were not really sending her to a program, you know? So that's where we're at now. You know, what's really disturbing about it is I did tell her caseworker, or we call them a service coordinator with the regional center, about what happened. And I was reading the email last night to refresh my memory on just how devastating this is, but they emailed back, how is she around men? How is she doing? What are her behaviors? We looked into extra hours for you. I talked to my supervisor. This is the best we can do. Yeah. Yeah. So let's take a step back again. My sister was raped at an outside caregiving facility, a daytime outside caregiving facility. And a supervisor is conversed with, but doesn't call us and say, this is a crime. This suspected abuse is a crime. We have to take this and we have to start getting you services and plan ahead and see what supports we can give you, right? That's what you would expect. We're in crisis. Yeah. Nothing. No, we kept Natalie home for 4 years, no services, no supports. They didn't recognize the suspected abuse in her case file for at least, I want to say 5 years.
So the regional center might be an entirely different, it's a whole different topic, because I've never met a special needs family that doesn't have a story just about the regional center. So I don't want to pick on them too much, but I wanted to, your partner in crime here, Marisol, you guys have decided to work together on this. So Marisol, tell us how you decided or were attracted to working with Julie in her mission. How did this affect you personally?
So actually, I've been doing some advocacy for a few years as well as Julie, and I think that we came from, two different perspectives, but all relevant, because it's when there's one family member who is incapacitated in any way, it impacts the entire family unit. And the second part is that Julie was much more plugged in, I think, from the organizational side, where I was more plugged in from the political side. And so I think that it was the two were so complementary that was what actually worked so well for us in this situation.
Yeah.
But our journey, our paths here are very similar. For Julie, it was many years seeing what her mom and her sister had to go through. For me, it was my own daughter who had brain cancer. So, and seeing her go, for me having to deal with her, with the healthcare system, the educational system, all of which were, really failed to serve her. And honestly, she almost died because of several medical errors that I fortunately interceded and prevented. I was very proactive in her care, making medical decisions on her behalf, sometimes against medical opinion. And that is essentially what ended up saving her life.
Wow.
So I was kind of an advocate all from the beginning, and I honestly continued into college and was studying neurobiology. So I was already thinking, I'm going to be an advocate. I'm going to change things. And years ago, how I was going to do that was something I was constantly battling in my head, because I was only thinking like, okay, how am I going to be the legal person, manager running this? How am I going to be the doctor who understands the medical side? How am I going to be the teacher? Everything so complicated, so many dimensions to this issue. And so kind of, looping back to when Julie and I spoke, I think that, obviously her sister's story is heartbreaking. I couldn't personally, I've cried with Julie a few times about this,
So have I. So you're among friends here.
Yes, it's very hard. I look at our differently able community as a community that, especially those with IDD, they're children to me. They're innocent as children. And when someone violates them that way, you have crossed a line that cannot be overlooked. And so with that passion and that same conviction, we went to the Democratic, we went to the party and brought forward two resolutions, one that was targeting the IDD specific issues, talking about the secret settlements. And the other one was talking more about caregiver and disability rights, because as you are probably very aware, Shahriar, is that there's a lot of socioeconomic elements of inequities, especially among the disabled community and their caregivers. So, we brought both of them forward. One of them unfortunately got postponed, but the other one went through this time around, and we succeeded not only to get it passed, but we got it prioritized. So out of 154 resolutions, ours was one of the top 13.
So tell us a little bit more. This terrible, tragic event unveiled not like you say, a great injustice in the system, but a technicality, from what I understand, that they didn't have to report some of this abuse, these care facilities. And you discovered kind of this, seems like it seems like the simplest thing in the world. Why wouldn't you be, I'm shocked that it's not in existence and it hasn't been law for 50 years. So you discovered this we're in the state of California, obviously, and you drafted some resolutions that you went through the California Democratic Party. They adopted one, they kind of put the other one off. So tell us more about this, the fact that you found this technicality that didn't exist and you drafted this resolution. What does the resolution really hope to achieve?
Well, both resolutions hope to achieve, obviously, equity and protections. The circular settlement resolution is truly aimed at accountability of these government organizations that are caring for dependent individuals. And it's also talking about being proactive in the sense of looking into technology and other resources that might provide better protections for persons who are incapable of self-advocacy.
Monitoring their status in the care facility, right?
Their emotional distress is what it really is. It's
right.
a matter of, since they cannot verbally communicate what they're feeling or experiencing, having a way, almost what you would do with an infant, right?
Sure.
Monitor.
A baby monitor,
cries, or there's something to monitor to alert you there's something wrong with your child. So the same measures are being implemented, but on a more nuanced level for adults with developmental disabilities, developmental intellectual disabilities. So I think that it's imperative and beholden upon us as a community to protect them. As I said from the outset, this is not something we would turn a blind eye to if it were a child. And we are literally dealing with people who are in adult bodies, but their minds are that of an infant or a young child. They cannot inform consent. They often cannot communicate what they've experienced. So this is one step in that direction. And like I said, and then the other issues are obviously dealing with caregiver burden. Julie's mom's been doing this like me. I've been doing this for 25 years. Wow. And I've done it as a single mom, which makes it's very hard. When you're doing it alone, it's even harder. And the reality is it's not sustainable. There's been a breadth of research stemming from Stanford on the psychosocial and actual physiological effects on caregivers. And they're often dying. High stress caregivers like myself are often dying as much as 10 years earlier than the people they care for. No, it's a human rights issue. All of this is a human rights issue. It really touches the entire family unit, and frankly, the larger family, not only just the immediate family, the parents, siblings, but the in-laws, the families on both sides. Everyone wants to help, but they don't know how. They don't know how. So, you guys kind of drafted these two resolutions. Take me through just kind of the highlights of each one so everyone's clear what each one technically says. And then we'll have the links to them, of course, on the blog below this so everyone will see it. But quick kind of synopsis, Julie, of each one.
Yeah, so the sexual assault transparency for people with IDD, let me state a couple facts here, okay? So number one, Senator Connie Leyva passed Bill SB 820, which is about secret settlements recently. Again, we're in such a great time right now. There's lots of movements coming forth, lots of social justice, and you have the power of social media. You have the power in your hands to reach more audiences. So basically, what's going on is taking after her bill SB 820. This kind of started with my husband saying, and he works in government. He worked in government for 13 years, but he said, look, you need transparency. And I said, why? Well, this is what should motivate people. The service system for people with IDD in California is taxpayer money. It's money from Washington. It's money from Sacramento. And so we as taxpayers, when there is a settlement, a non-disclosure agreement or a secret settlement, it is taxpayer dollars that are funding that settlement. So essentially, we are covering up a very big problem. And why is it a problem? NPR recently reported back in 2000, I believe it was 2018, and he covered my sister Natalie's story. He has a series titled Abused and Betrayed. Natalie's story is under She Cannot Tell Us What's Wrong. But essentially what he says and what he was able to promote as a key finding is that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are sexually assaulted at the highest rate out of any population, which is 7 times. 7 times, and it's 12 times for women. 12 times for women. This is coined and this is labeled as an epidemic. Wow. And currently we're living in a pandemic. This is a silent epidemic amongst us, and we have to do more. We can't do anything until we have data. So this bill, this potential bill that we have, this resolution about transparency, is to really bring to light all the secret settlements that are involving people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, where the settlement is with taxpayer money. We're asking for them to go back about 10 years because we need historical data. We can go forward, but things might be handled a little bit differently going forward. But we need historical data that says this facility, X, Y, and Z, settled for this. We still want to protect the victim and the family. We still want to protect them. And I think that this is a proper route to take because, number one, out of the families I've spoken with, they've signed a non-disclosure agreement and they are scared to death to speak out. Number one, they're traumatized and they're tired and they just want it over with. But number two, they're afraid to speak out because of the penalties with the non-disclosure agreement. We are telling people who are vulnerable to be quiet, and we're giving them a little bit of money. And when the money's gone, the system is the same. And what do? The burden again is on a caregiver. Wow. So imagine if we have 5 secret settlements, and let's say these 5 settlements paid out $500,000 in taxpayer money. Can't that money be used for risk reduction? Can't that money be used to incentivize technology to monitor people and their involuntary nervous system? Can it be used to create a plan where when you're in your IEP and IPP meeting, you have a service coordinator sitting down with you saying, we need to discuss a plan for when abuse happens. This has been funded by the public. We will get you support. The rate is too high not to do something. And currently nobody's really recognizing this. The last report that I saw for the state of California was from 2003, and they declared it a public health emergency 17 years ago.
So that was that's the first bill or the first resolution. It's a data monitoring reporting, right? Is that what I gathered from the?
We're essentially, my apologies. We're essentially looking for a report, an annual report that indicates all the facilities that have signed up for secret settlements and what it was for. Okay. Because it's taxpayer money, we as taxpayers deserve this transparency. Sure. Once we get these numbers in, we can really understand the scope of the bigger issue. Because I will tell you real quick, this system relies on self-reporting for sexual assault. This system relies on what's called a special incident report. It is a self-report. I do not trust the system. I do not trust people advocating for my sister. I trust technology. I trust awareness.
So that's the first resolution. What is the second one about?
Do you want, okay. So that's, the second resolution is one that I wrote, Shahriar. Actually, so we co-authored the first one, the secret settlement, and I authored alone the second one, but we never really think about it that way. Just so you know. But the second one is really talking about acknowledging the fact that we have just here in California, we have 4.5 million caregivers who provide care to 38% of adult Californians. Wow. And with one or more chronic conditions, these informal caregivers are providing, just in California alone, $58 billion in economic value. Nationally, that's $470 billion annually. Meanwhile, in particular for the ones who work for the government in the in-home supported services, they're only being paid $15 an hour. Yeah. That's 40, and meanwhile, 46% of those who provide this complex care perform medical and nursing tests, and they are 2.5 more times to live in poverty. And under the, one other thing that I've really been advocating for is MERP, which is Medicaid Estate Recovery Plan. Over 50%, almost 50% of caregivers are age 55 and over. When you're getting paid only $15 an hour, you cannot afford private insurance. Yeah. You have to rely on Medi-Cal. And if you're 55 and over and you're on Medi-Cal, guess what? The government's gonna come for your personal property. Wow. And that is a problem. I think there's nothing more, I mean, it's hard enough that they're not even being paid adequately for the level of work that they're doing and the challenges they have to endure. And they slashed their hours by 7%. Now that's been temporarily suspended by the governor, but it hasn't actually been permanently removed. They cut their hours. So they're actually say you worked 40 hours, they're gonna or 100 hours. They're gonna say we're gonna take 7% off just by default because in case we made an error and we're paying you too much. So they're taking off already, you know, seven of your hours out of the 100 that you worked, just by default. And so the wages are low, the hours are cut. There's no retirement. There's no, the pension, sick days are all difficult to achieve, especially when they're cutting your hours. And many of us are going without those retirement securities, you know. And how can you save when you're not even having enough to live on? Meanwhile, when we talk, like what I mentioned earlier, a lot of people forget the caregivers. Without those caregivers, people like Natalie are left to have to resort to going to these day programs. And that is, I mean, that is the problem that we're facing when the value of the work they do, when these family members step up to this work and give up all of their personal lives to support it, to be there for them and do everything that another nursing staff member would have to do. The least we could do is provide them a living wage, make sure that don't dehumanize them by cutting their hours, don't penalize them by forcing them to have to retain an attorney to protect their personal property and not be able to leave what they may have worked for until the person who they're caring for became disabled, right? And you know, I mean, literally, I think people don't understand that the caregivers their cellular aging is at 6 times the rate of single parents. So they're dying. You know, they are dying. The stress hormones are 23% higher. You know, the 1 in 4 are committing suicide. You know, the depression, anxiety levels are through the roof. I don't think people really understand that this is all around, both for the provider and the recipient. This is a human rights issue. People on both sides are dying, and people on both sides, both the recipient and the provider, are suffering.
Wow. You know, all of this sounds familiar, right? So if you've been in the system, first of all, nobody would know any of this stuff unless they have a special needs loved one, right? Nobody would ever touch this level of bureaucracy, which is intimidating in and of itself, right? And it's designed, as you guys have concluded and articulated very well, to protect itself, not necessarily your loved one. It's not designed to protect your loved one, which is the horrific, the first injury is that, right? And then when you add to it, as you mentioned, Marisol, the poor working conditions of the caregivers. And even though many people may go into that profession with all the best intentions because they want to, you know, help others, the poor working conditions does not attract some of the best and brightest, right? They are attracted to other professions and other fields, and working for $15 an hour, getting abused, getting your own insult to injury afterwards, just doesn't retain the top talent that you want to take care of your loved one. If nothing else happens, you know, just that alone is such a huge shift in the bureaucracies that take care of our loved ones. That might be enough to change the trajectory of this pandemic. It may be epidemic in some way, but it's really a global event that is affecting everybody. We are looking at it in our microcosm here in California, but it's really, you know, if you are a special needs person at a very low functioning level, you are a victim. Before anything else happens to you, you're a victim already. And the system begins to regurgitate you as a victim as you get passed between systems, whether it's the educational system, insurance, social services, victimize, right? So you guys have come up with at least a way to make a dent in this gigantic bureaucracy by not only improving the working conditions of the caregivers, which is where, as they say, the rubber meets the road. If the caregiver isn't taken care of, how are you going to expect good results from your loved one, which has already been victimized and have a difficult time in life? But add to it, Julie, the transparency that you mentioned with that other bill, the resolution, shocking that bureaucracies don't have to first report the abuse, and the fact that they do, that it's paid off with hush money so often that it leaves a big gaping hole in the California state budget, that it's not reported. That why isn't such a simple thing to report this? I mean, I realize what the goal is, but the real problem is there's this abuse happening. There's no way to monitor it, no way to protect your loved ones. So you're forced to literally put them in protective custody at home.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
every single thing you're saying is, I'm sure every special needs family relates to, because they've lived it. Even if they haven't been sexually abused in a residential care facility, nothing is more frightening to a special needs family than leaving their loved one in the care of another person. Whether it's the bus driver taking them to school, whether it's the residential care facility, their school aides, whatever it is, that's what families like us struggle with. If we die, when we go away, we're not going to live forever. Who's going to take care of my space? Who's going to be my Natalie's voice yelling and pointing a finger at a bureaucracy, saying you better, shape up and take care of my loved one or else, right? So you guys are champions of the highest order, and I think we need to articulate for people that are watching, what can they do to help? Now that you've done the heavy lifting, you've articulated the issue, you've brought the documented how to get results with these two resolutions. How can people help now? Marisol, you can go if you want.
So first and foremost, I mean, we are collecting both public signatures and elected official signatures. Again, this is not a partisan issue. So how you identify politically really is irrelevant. What we're interested in is making sure that elected officials stand with people with different abilities, that they elevate their voices, and furthermore, even more importantly, we're looking to elected officials to actually adopt these policies as law and implement it as law. The second component, the public, we need the public's voice. We need the public's strength to really communicate to elected officials how urgent this matter is, that the public wants this. And persons in positions of influence and power, if we need you to step up right now, we need you to sign on to these resolutions, to support them and to help us be able to be successful. We need their voices. They have the microphone. We need them to help us, elevate.
So right now, one of the resolutions was adopted by the California Democratic Party's Resolutions Committee, right? And then it's going to go to the full California Democratic Party platform or full convention, whenever that is. Or is it done?
No. It's done.
It's done.
There.
It's in the program. Good. Okay, even better. So
and the other one just got postponed because of technicality in their processing. So it wasn't anything pertinent to the resolution itself.
Okay, even better.
But
So do you guys have to do some legwork to get, let's say, the Republican Resolutions Committee or the other side to adopt this, or have these parties ever seen eye to eye on disability rights that you have observed? Go ahead.
I personally have, I guess because I've worked, I personally have seen that there's a great deal of compassion coming from both parties. I have talked with Republicans and Democrats alike. I think that the compassion is there. I think understanding, I think a lot of people are lost about what this issue really is, putting like something tangible before them. And that's why I think Natalie's story, as well as my daughter's story and our journey together, is so important, because we're really giving a face to those events and what that entails. You know, the fact that my daughter has a borderline IQ but is attending college, and the fact that I went to study neurobiology and I educated her myself all along the way, you know, 3 hours a night, 6 days a week, you know, having is really a telling story of what, when we invest in good ideas, in good policy, we get success. You know, and I think it's a win-win. It's a win for the individual, and it's a win for society as a whole. Right. So I can't see how anyone would not support that. Right.
Julie, any parting thoughts? Go ahead.
Of course. Of course there are. You know, what I'd like to leave the audience with is, I do have a website, nataliesvoice.net. And so what I've done is, I'm currently fiscally sponsored. And let me just share with you the mission real quick. And I do have to read it because it just got refreshed. But, you know, as Natalie's Voice, we have 3 goals. Number 1 is to raise the awareness that people with IDD are highly vulnerable to sexual assault. I am on Facebook, I am doing podcasts, I am writing articles, I'm doing blogs. We need the general population to know this is an epidemic. This is terrible. And these people are highly vulnerable, and we need to support them, because, as Mahatma Gandhi said, the true measure of any society is in how we treat our most vulnerable members. Number 2, we really want to empower caregivers with effective planning tools. That could be technology. I want my sister to wear a Fitbit one day, and I want it when her involuntary nervous system, you know, is going off, her heart rate's increasing, her positioning's changing, maybe there's some sweat detectors. I want my phone to go off when I'm at work, because I want her to still have a life. I want her to be included in society. That's the whole goal of the Landerman Act. It's a law for people with disabilities, and currently it's being violated. So we need technology. The human system relying on people isn't quite working so well. Thirdly, we need to build community around response so that perpetrators are brought to justice. As soon as a family is a survivor of this incident, and it happens multiple times. I'm speaking with a woman in LA, her son's been sexually abused twice, okay? But as soon as this happens, the regional center needs to refer you to a family justice center. And family justice centers need the money to train and put in infrastructure and accessibility to meet the needs of people with IDD. It's already there, guys. We just have to connect the dots and divert dollars, and we need to focus on this. And so that is what I'm working on under Natalie's Voice. And again, Marisol, you're absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's been such a pleasure. Quite frankly, it's a gift. I wouldn't be here today without you. You are, you know, a top supporter, as you are, Shahriar. This is very lonely work. It was very lonely work. This happened in 2012, and we started getting connected in 2018, and now it's 2021. So you can keep track of Natalie's Voice, again, at nataliesvoice.net, and we'll go ahead and share links and social media in the comments below.
Fantastic.
And the resolutions are also, both resolutions can be found at our other site, which is Marisol and Julie Advocate.com. So Marisol and Julie Advocate.com.
We'll have the links. We'll have all the links below. We're gonna probably check in with you guys every so often, because there's gonna be milestones to report. There's gonna be you all touched about a dozen different topics that we could take a deeper dive in, right? Dealing with regional center, dealing with the state legislature and the political system, dealing with technology, all of these peripheral things that come together. But I'm the lucky one that got to, you know, connect with the two of you, and helping you guys have been, I gotta say, one of the best things I've ever done in my life. So I'm in for the long haul, and I'm gonna drag kicking and screaming anybody else around me to help this cause until we get the results we want. Thank you, Marisol. Thank you, Julie, for everything you do. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.